through by Powell today. He testified before the House Financial Service Committee, and I'm flustered because it's like, first off, it's a non-event. They talk about raising the rates of measly 0.25%, 25 basis points, as they would say. Powell doubled down on that. He said that they are still going to be doing the 25 basis point hike. Keep in mind that's 0.25%. They keep saying 25 basis points to make it sound like it's something fancy. It's 0.25%. And I have some charts I'm going to show you in this video of the real information on the economy, the real information about the federal funds rate, the real information about M2 money supply not moving around right now, the real information of how, as I'm making this video right now, the reason I chose oil in the clickbait thumbnail this time around, hopefully that clickbait thumbnail will work because I want to get this video out to more people. So if you could help me with that and hit the like button, it really does help. We got to tell that algorithm, look, you might not push the video, but we're going to push it anyway. So if we hit the like button, it'll get this information out there, and I hope it's worthwhile to hit that like button because it really does work when you do that. I appreciate it. Right now, as I'm making this video, oil is just casually spiking over $113 a barrel for crude oil right now. Like, what? And Powell's just going to go the way that Powell said this in his well, first let me just say what was brought up. The facts of what they said is they said the EU inflation came out, and it actually came out higher than expected. Whoa, who would have thought? Came out at 5.8% when it was supposed to be 5.4% over in the EU. So that's the first bit of information that we're told. The next bit of information was, obviously we knew this was going to happen. We knew Powell was going to blame what's happening overseas right now on what they caused. We knew that they were going to use this as an excuse, and boom, there he is using it as an excuse, saying, well, this makes everything a total different scenario because of what's going on over there. Now we need to really rethink our strategy. But we're still going to do that measly 0.25% basis hike because that's going to stop inflation out of control. That's going to get oil prices down and all of that. That's going to give us more buying power for sure. Just that measly 0.25%, that's going to help. It's laughable, really. And meanwhile, they have this huge amount of assets on their balance sheet that they need to unwind on the market as well. So it's not just about raising rates a measly 0.25%, but it's also all these assets on hand that the Fed has, bought up. And money printer go bird. They don't just inject. They have a certain method of how they inject money into the economy, and it goes from buying these certain assets and certain bonds and things like that, T-bills and whatnot. And now they have to unwind all the things that they bought. So it's like the amount of bad news ahead for what Powell has to do and how he sits there so kind of calm and collected. I just wish I was a fly on the wall when all of this broke out overseas, because Powell was like, oh my God, I can blame something. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, this is perfect. I had no answers for this. Now we can blame this. Oh my God, this is great. And that's what they're going to do. That's what I think is going to continue to happen. That's going to be the sentiment, is going to be along the lines of, let's just blame, what's going on overseas. They stated that they believed unemployment was still low and was improving, that there's more employment across the board. I still, to this day, it's like, just like they change the numbers on the CPI data and they can kind of get it to say whatever they want. I don't really buy the information that they say that unemployment is at this all-time low. It just doesn't make much sense to me with everything going on. But hey, what do I know? But regardless of the unemployment low, I believe our economic output is very low right now. So this is a telltale sign of stagflation. And what caused stagflation? What caused stagflation last time? It was literally an oil crisis. That was what caused it. And we haven't been through a stagflation in 40 years, 40 some odd years. So stagflation and I keep bringing this up. I know people are getting tired of this, but I've been saying it for a long time, and it's proving to be right. I've been talking about this for months and months and months on the channel, if not years. But stagflation is when you have some sort of catalyst, some sort of supply shock. And there's obviously a supply shock with oil. That's what caused it in the late 70s, early 80s, when inflation ramped through the roof over 15%, and Paul Volcker had to raise the rates to 22% to stop it, over 20% to stop it. It was literally caused by an oil shock. And nowadays, like, how many more cars are on the road now? How much more of a necessity is oil to get to these jobs? I know a lot of these jobs are going to be from at home now, but still, there's a ton more cars on the road. Oil is extremely essential to our economy. And here we are dealing with oil skyrocketing to 113 a barrel, and we think, and then on top of it, it's like adding insult to injury, because we just had the State of the Union, and that was just like a complete, I don't even have words in English to describe what that was, because it wasn't, I don't know if it was in English, but then on this, after that is like, okay guys, we just have, this is unbelievable. But let me show you some charts. Let me show you some of the stuff that I'm looking at. The last thing I was going to bring up before I start showing you the charts and stuff that I have pulled up on the left is he briefly talked about crypto in general, and Bitcoin. I think of them as you know from my channel, I think of Bitcoin and crypto. I think they're different things, but he talked about it and basically said he's slightly worried about it, but at the same time, it's not that big of a concern to him. And I'm like, the way that he phrased it was odd, but it's also a good thing, because you don't want Powell, if you're in Bitcoin, you don't really want him to be looking at it like anything other than a speculative asset, because that's a good thing. That's part of the game theory of it. You want to turn your head? Great. But it's obviously, Bitcoin had a huge last week to get back to, 44,000 right now. It was down, its bottom was around 33,000. But I think that narrative is going around the world right now of realizing, wait a minute, they can just freeze accounts in your bank? Wait a minute. What? We didn't realize they had that much power to do that, to be able to affect our individual banking accounts. We don't really own our money. Oh, I don't have custody of my money. I have to ask permission to get my money. That's interesting. So a lot of people, even if they weren't caught in between all of that, they got worried because they realized, well, and I'm worried about it. I think everybody that watches my channel thinks about it as well, because I always bring up, do you really have custody of your money? Really think about it. Do you have to beg for your money? Do you have to go to a teller and say, hey, can I get my money? And then they go, oh, well, maybe at a later date we can give you that kind of an amount, or what do you want it for? We go, hey, let me do this wire transfer information and this and that. You have to go through all this all these different protocols to get access to that. So it's not like you have the password in your head. You don't need to ask any banker or ask anybody for your money. You have to go there and do something about it. It's not like you have. I just pulled out. I put out this Palladium bar. I keep showing it off all the time, but it reminds me to talk about Palladium, because obviously Palladium is up quite a bit, because Russia is involved with about 45-50% of the worldwide Palladium supply. So obviously that's going to affect the price of Palladium, just like we're seeing it affect the price of oil. But again, I think that the narrative is going out there that, wait a minute, I don't know if I trust the current banking system. I don't know if I want to have my custody there, based on everything that's going on. And then when you hear somebody like Powell that goes out there from the Fed and just basically like, it's like just someone beating around the bush in the most obvious way possible, constantly. And it bothers me to see all the news outlets talking, wow, is he really going to do a 25 basis point hike? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, they need to 10x that to do anything. And that wouldn't even be enough. A 0.25% basis hike, that's nothing. So it's like it blows my mind that it turns into this thing of whether they're going to do, and they're making it into a bigger ordeal when they're really doing nothing. If anything, what I would do is say, hey, we need to raise rates to 10%, and we're going to do it in increments of probably 2%. And then you get people at least ready for what's going to happen. But in the way that they do it, it's like slowly peeling off the Band-Aid instead of ripping it off. You know you need to rip it off, but you're just slowly doing it. So it's making people have more and more anxiety, I think, by just saying, oh, we're going to do this 25-point basis hike, etc. Something seems very off about that. But let me show you the charts over here. I want to show you what I'm looking at on my end. Also, I guess I'll bring that up after I go over these charts here, but he brought up how the dollar, there is space for another reserve currency. Powell didn't used to talk like that. If you remember, I mean, I know a lot of people watching my channel. We got 100 people in here. I know I'm going to start looking at the comments a little bit later towards the video. It's like, remember when Powell was saying, look, we're high on the pedestal. We're the reserve currency of the world. He used to talk with so much like oomph about that. He was like, oh, we don't have any competition. In this last one, he goes, yeah, there's space for another reserve currency. It's like, whoa, what? Wait a minute, Powell. Did you just say that? Did you just say that there's room for another reserve currency out there? Like, that's interest. That to me was like, whoa, you just kind of dropped the ball there. That's kind of crazy. But I don't know if that went over a lot of people's heads, but I picked up on it, and I wanted to bring it up in this video. But let's talk about oil for a second. So here's oil. This is actually a chart all the way back to 2016, and just shows to show you. I mean, this isn't just over what we had now. I mean, it just shows you how high it really is in comparison prior to everything going on. But let me zoom in this chart here. Maybe we'll pull up the 1 year. Pull up the 1 year chart. This is the 1 year chart on oil. Yeah, there's no inflation is under control, and under the State of the Union, you got them coming out there and saying, hey, yeah, all you got to do is basically pay more wages and lower your costs. That'll stop this. Oh, that's how you do it. Oh, really? Really? That's how you do it. It's just like that. Okay, yeah, for sure, guy. It blows my mind that they like. And then the clapping. I keep joking around and saying this on the Instagram and on the Twitter and stuff. And in the last video, it's like the clapping. I want to know what the people clapping are invested in. I want to know what put options they have, what they're shorting, how they're shorting it. I want to know all this information, because that is the portfolio to follow. Is the people clapping in that? Those are the ones you want to follow, because you're going to make some money if you follow those claps, because they're clapping for something. I don't know what they're clapping for, but they're clapping for something. They gotta be. But this is insane. This is, I mean, $113 a barrel. And look at these spikes here. These are not like it was already climbing, but to see these spikes, it's basically like how the inflation rate is going and randomly spiking for a year when it was 1.4%, and in less than a year went from 1.4 to over 7%. That's what we're seeing right now in oil. And this is what's interesting is Russia is, it's not the number one producer of oil, but it's the number one exporter of oil. That's a big deal. So that's why it's affecting oil so much. They're smart. They're very smart. So they don't keep the oil as much as they send it out. So they're the number one exporter. So if the number one exporter of oil is in the situation that they're in right now, that affects global markets, obviously. And that's the reason why the only sanction that would really hurt them is sanctioning oil. Sanctioning natural gas and oil. If you did that, then that's really going to hurt. But guess what? The sanctions don't include that. Why is that? Maybe because we're getting put in check on the chessboard. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why Powell said, hey, there might be room for another reserve currency out there. What are you preparing yourself for? A currency that's actually backed to something? Maybe. I don't know what it is. But the fact that he brought that up, that didn't go over my head. But look, it's as I'm making this video, it's spiking. Look at the rate of how oil is moving right now. Look at this. Look at, as we're making this video, look at this. This is insane. I gotta pull up the 1 day. Like, it's crazy to see this kind of jump on oil, and nobody's really, what are they not concerned about this? And the way that Powell brought it up as well, he goes, the way he described it is, he goes, oil and commodities, quote unquote, are moving through the economy. So this is his actual quote. He goes, oil and the commodities going up in price are going to move throughout the economy, quote unquote. That's what he said. And basically the way that I took it is he's saying that it's going to affect inflation, but it's going to be a transitory. He's careful not to use that word anymore, because now we know it's not true. But he's basically saying the same thing. Is it another temporary thing? Is it another transitory thing? It's just going to move through the economy. That's how he puts it. They use these terms like, oh, it's just going to move through the economy. Oh, really? You mean it's going to spike inflation and it's not going to slow down anytime soon? You mean like that kind of movement through the economy, pal? Okay, that's what you mean. Okay. It's laughable. The next thing I want to show is the consumer price index here. So here's the consumer price index to show you just how fast this thing is running up from the early, just a straight line up. Yeah, nothing to be concerned about. But then I wanted to show, so here's the consumer price index as well to where it is today. Now, you'll notice the last time we went through stagflation, it was up to just about 15% on the consumer price index back then. And if we use the same data that they used back then today, it would be showing that it's way up here as well. But we changed the data up. All the data that they used back when we went through stagflation back then has been changed. And so it's showing that it's down here. But still, the thing is, this is a significant spike to be to where it is now. This hasn't updated too. This is showing January of 2022 is showing, 7.52%. So that is updated. But I think that this, if they use the real CPI, it would show that it's way up here. Now, when they talk about how, things are going okay through the economy, this shows a completely different story. When you look at the velocity of money, you look at velocity of M2. Let me pull got to make sure I'm not in the way here. When you look at M2, this is basically how much are people moving their money around? How much are people spending their dollars and doing stuff with their money? This shows that people are sitting on their money. They don't want to throw it around. So the velocity of M2 stock is basically like how many people are holding their money under their mattress and not doing anything with it. This goes into my dollar hot potato theory of why I think the dollar is strengthening is because people are scared. It's obvious. Look, they're not moving their money around. It's at a pretty much an all-time low. This goes all the way back to the 60s. This is like people move their money around, and just as of recent, they decided we're not going to use our money anymore. We're just going to sit on it. Why is nobody talking about that? It's very obvious. The data is very clear. And why am I the one that shows charts and stuff? Why isn't Powell up there with charts? He's the federal chair, right? If you're the Fed chair, you should be, showing charts and letting people know what's going on. Why am I the one showing these charts? This college dropout kid. What do I know? Right? So here's the federal funds effective rate. And this really puts it into perspective of how little they've done. Like if there's anything that I can show you that puts it into perspective of just how out of tools they are, that's the best way I could phrase this. This is how you know how out of tools the Fed is. Because here they had a big tool in their tool chest. They could raise the federal funds rate up to over 20%. And that's what stopped the stagflation crisis. So you had a crisis, you had stagflation, and they had to raise rates extremely high. And this gray area here, this is a recession. So a recession is basically it's the painful medicine. A recession is what is needed for the painful medicine for being put in a terrible situation like stagflation. You need to go through a recession. You can't just hide from it. You can't hide and keep kicking the can down the road, or else it makes it worse and worse and worse. But look at this. So they used this tool in the tool chest, and it got inflation down. So this is when Paul Volcker raised the rates, and he raised it up to over 20%, and they got inflation down by doing that. Now, the problem is they have had the interest rates, look, it was already at zero for the longest time. They just started barely bringing it up, and then boom, they've had it down at 0%. So this shows you they have done little to nothing. If they want to stop, if the inflation, and it's just so obvious, it's crazy how obvious this really is. You go to the CPI figures. So again, this is when they had to raise it to over 20%. To stop inflation, and on the chart I just showed you. And so this is the consumer price index. This is actual inflation numbers. If we use the same data again that we used back then, it would show that we're up here. But even if we agree with their ridiculously low number, which I think it's a lot higher than that if you use real data, if you use that 7.5% figure, you're talking about half of where this is, right? Or a little bit over half of where it was last time. To stop it last time, they used over 20% to stop it. Paul Volcker raised it over 20%. They think about it from a statistics perspective. They had to raise it to over 20% to stop inflation of 14 some odd percent, almost 15% on the CPI. We're down at 0%. And they were already decently high. They had to raise it from what was it, 8 to 10% here. They had to raise it. And it was already pretty high, but we're at 0, and we're talking about raising it from here to here, and that's going to stop inflation like it did back then? No, you're gonna do nothing. You're gonna raise it. You're telling me you're gonna raise it from here to there, right there. That's what they're doing, and that's what everybody's talking about. Am I crazy, guys? Am I crazy? Is this not obvious to everybody? I mean, this is insane. I mean, this is just the obvious information. Why is this college dropout kid telling you that, why do I watch this the guy who's making a bunch of money as the Fed chair completely just being an actor? This is the real data. The data is clear. Like, if that doesn't show what really is the truth, I don't know what does. But it gets worse. Just like, in these in the commercials and stuff. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about the assets on hand. This is how much assets the Fed bought with their money printer. So not only can they not raise rates enough to actually stop this like they did back then, but they have to unwind nearly $9 trillion of assets on hand that they've purchased, right? So they have to sell back assets that they have bought while all this is happening. So if what I just showed you wasn't enough, then there you go. That's how much assets they have on hand. This chart goes all the way back to 2003, shows you just how much that they have bought. That is insane how much stuff they have on hand right now. Insane. And again, none of these charts, why are these charts not shown? Why do they do these like conferences or whatever, these check-ins or whatever with the House Financial Service Committee? I keep messing that up. Why do they do that? Like, what's the point? They don't talk about real data. This is the real data. The real data is very clear. So, sorry, I get a little bit riled up. Let's go back to these charts over here. We'll go over some numbers. I mean, the overall market, we're seeing the Dow Jones looks like it recovered a bit. NASDAQ recovers a bit. S&P recovers a bit. So to me, there's a ton of room to fall there. But the interesting aspect is we're seeing things like these are where I want to be personally. So I separate my charts here on this little website on where I want to be. And I want to be gold, silver, platinum, palladium, copper, Bitcoin. I think that commodities are going to be showing some serious strength as well. And the dollar index is holding those gains. So the dollar index is still at 97.50. And what that tells me is I think smart money is selling out of here and going into here and the dollar index. And eventually it's going to go from the dollar because obviously the M2 money supply money's not moving around anymore. So it's going from here into here, and then it's all going to flood into here. That's what I think is going to happen. That's kind of my dollar hot potato theory in short. I think that the reason we're seeing strength in the dollar is not due to trusting the dollar. I think it's due to fear. It is purely fear of what's next and having dollars ready. But eventually, the difference this time around is we're dealing with inflation that is uncontrollable. So the difference this time around that we didn't have last time is, so it makes sense to have cash. Cash is king. But as people see the inflation data is not transitory, it's not stopping, it's not temporary, they're going to get scared to be sitting in that cash position. So at first, people flood into a cash position, right? And then they're in cash, and then they realize, oh, wait, it's burning on both ends. This cash pile is burning. And if you hear like Michael Saylor, that recent interview Michael Saylor did with Patrick Bet-David was a great one, actually, one of his best. I'm a big fan of both of them. He was talking about how his job was to protect the company's assets, and that's his reason for going into Bitcoin. And some people agree with the Bitcoin thing, some people don't, but the truth is the problem at hand of what he's talking about. The problem that he was faced is he had this huge balance sheet of hundreds of millions of dollars, and he knew that in the process of 3-4 years, it was going to lose 100% of its buying power pretty much at this rate. So what I think is happening is people are going into the dollar short term and they're sitting on that cash pile. And when people stare at that cash pile for long enough, and then the real news comes out of inflation, and obviously it's all over YouTube, it's all over traditional news, people talking about inflation, they're going to start going, oh, I got to do something with this cash. I got to do something with it. And that's when the money is going to flood into safe haven assets, I think. So what's interesting too, though, is safe haven assets are already detaching. So my first thought was that it was all going to kind of pull back together, but we're seeing them detach. We're seeing gold go up when markets go down, which is what we're supposed to see, but it didn't happen that way last time. It's very interesting to me. Another thing that proves just how much Russia is affecting the markets is Palladium here. I've been talking about Palladium a lot on this channel, and let me go back. So look at the Palladium chart. Why is it showing up as little green? If I put up the 1 year, there we go. All right, so Palladium has had just a ridiculous reversal. So at the bottom of the Palladium market, it was down to just about 1,500. What a buy it was at 1,500. That is just insane. And now we're seeing Palladium starting to skyrocket here. Let's pull up the 3-month chart. Look at the 3-month chart on Palladium. That is just, it's like trading like a tech stock or something. You see Palladium's bottom here was, just over 1,500. And then it's at 26.56. And this is the bid, by the way. The ask, I believe, is well over 2,700. I think it's 2,750. Let me double check here. I'll tell you what the exact price of Palladium is. Palladium right now is 27.26 is the ask price. So this is just showing the bid here. So over $2,700 an ounce for Palladium. So if that doesn't show you that Russia is affecting marketplaces, I don't know what will. It's very obvious. Russia holds about 45% of the global supply of Palladium, or actually probably more when you talk about their actual holdings, but they are responsible for mining 45% of the global supply. So 45 to 50% is coming from Russia, and who knows how much they have in assets on hand that they're just holding and they're not letting out. And what I think is going to happen with Palladium, I talked about this in the video, was it yesterday or the day before? I think that it'd be a smart move for auto companies that are going to need this in their cars to buy in bulk right now. I mean, why wouldn't you? This right here is almost like a $30,000 piece of Palladium. So obviously you can fit it, you could fit a large amount of money in it. If I was one of these auto manufacturers that needs Palladium for my cars to meet the emissions regulation qualifications for my cars, I would be stockpiling. I would be getting rid of my balance sheet because your balance sheet is losing to inflation anyway. You're going to get less buying power to buy it, and it's a limited metal that you're not going to be able to find soon. So if it was me, I'd be accumulating Palladium like crazy if I was one of these auto manufacturers, and I think that's going to set in and cause a squeeze in Palladium to get it well over all-time highs and break 3,000 an ounce. That's what I think is happening with Palladium. Not financial advice, just my personal opinion. Excuse me, but if Russia, which is only responsible for, it's responsible for a lot of the world's oil supply, sure, but on a percentage basis, Russia is way more responsible for the world's Palladium supply. Because you're talking about 45 to 50%. Half of it is coming from there. So that's where you're going to see what the effects are of what's going on with Russia right now. So if we let's pull up the 1 month. Just to kind of show what the effects are of everything. So the war broke out, I believe, somewhere around here, and we're seeing it going in that direction right now. We're going to see how long it keeps this trajectory, but these are significant gaps up, like 50-point gaps up, 100-point gaps up, going from the lower 2000s, and we're talking within weeks, days, getting to where it is now. These are big gaps up for Palladium, and that tells you a lot about what's going on. And what's crazy is I was just making points. I think in the video I did talking about oil skyrocketing, the last live stream I did, I talked about how oil was over, like 108 a barrel. And I'm going, how crazy that oil's up over 108 a barrel. Boom, jumps up to 113 the next day. What? This is insane. I was making the video around right here, and boom, it's continuing up. And so what's laughable is Powell talked about this. He goes, he brought up oil, and he said that, it's just going to move through. It's going to obviously affect things, but it's going to move through the economy, and it's going to be a temporary thing. That's what he said. He goes, this is going to be a temporary thing, and it's just moving through the economy, but obviously it's going to affect inflation in the short term, and that's what's going to happen here. And it's like, okay, so you're using these excuses of, war overseas. That's going to be what causes all of these different problems. And then you're saying that the reason for that, and then you're saying as an excuse for oil prices skyrocketing, which is actually where inflation actually hurts the average individual. When you go to the gas pump and you go, wow, this is insane. And worse, what happens if we see, you could Google this, of stagflation of the late 70s, early 80s. Look up oil embargo crisis, or, these pictures of cars lined up for streets, like blocks and blocks and blocks and streets around the corner to get oil. They're willing to pay whatever price, but they're just trying to get it. That was the problem back then. So, what happens if you get to a scenario where people start stockpiling oil and we have to start rationing gas and things like that, and then you have lines around? Look at how many cars are on the road today. This is a lot more serious of an issue than I think is being talked about. And what's crazy is Powell talked about how he thinks, and I brought this up a little bit earlier, he thinks that there's a possible scenario now, and this is a total change of tone for Powell. Powell in the past has said, oh, dollar's king, we're the reserve currency, what we say goes. I mean, if you've been watching Powell, I'm sure a lot of us in here have watched him in the past, and he says he had a lot of conviction. This is like within the last year, was talking about, well, we're the reserve currency, what we say goes, this and that. And this time around, he's talking about, well, there's room for another reserve currency. What? What did you say? There's room for another? And who is going to be the other? And why is it needed then? Right? Because it's all back to nothing. I thought we were simply the one that was the most trustworthy, so we were the one that was trusted, right? We just were the first to steal the gold, right? So obviously we're the most trustworthy. You trust us with the gold, we steal it, now we're the most trustworthy, right? So that's what's going on, and now he's changed the tone, and he goes, well, I think there's room for another. What happens if another currency out there decides to back their money to something? What happens if Russia wants to be paid in gold for their oil? It's not a long shot. I mean, look at what the Saudis did this. I believe it was in like I think it maybe 50s. No, it might have been in the 70s. I have to double check where it was. Like the Saudi Aramco company had us pay them in gold instead of the dollar because they were worried about inflation risk. So this has already happened in the past where the Saudis want to be paid in gold for their oil. So what happens if Russia does the same thing? It says, actually, because right now would be the perfect time. And I don't want to sound crazy right now. I just want to tell what's genuinely on my mind. But right now would be the perfect time for Russia to do something like this because the ruble just tanked. I mean, look at what's happening to fiat currencies. We only focus on the dollar and the euro and stuff, but fiat currencies are failing. Like the lira, you look at what's happening with the ruble now. I mean, all of these current fiat currencies are failing because they're back to nothing, and we are just the best of the worst. And so that's why the dollar has been chosen as the reserve one. But if Powell's talking in that tone, that tells me that there's conversations going on that they're going, what is the next move here? Is Russia going to want to price their oil in gold? And is China, who has been stockpiling gold, by the way, going to pay Russia for that oil in gold? Is that what's going to happen? And then they go, okay, well, we're taking gold for our oil now. I think that's going to be his first choice. Some people are even saying that he might go and adopt Bitcoin or something along those lines, but I think it's something to do with gold. And imagine they did that. Imagine they came out, they said, well, the ruble's failing, and now that since it's failed, we're coming out with our own CBDC, and it's back to gold. And we have X amount of gold in our vault, and this is the new ruble. Or the yuan decides to do that. And what would happen then? I mean, that's another silent, talk about like a Sun Tzu type approach, the art of war. What if all of a sudden China decides to back the yuan to gold? Now, that would be interesting. I don't know what the next play is, but the fact that Powell brought that up was very strange to me. And I've been talking about that a lot on the channel. I was like, well, what happens if somebody decides to back their currency to something? What happens then? That would be insane. So, yeah, that's pretty much some of the ranting I wanted to do on this. The last thing I want to say about the Fed is every single time they do one of these conversations, they don't show you the real charts like I just showed you in this video, because that data is very clear. It's very obvious. If I can make it out, and obviously it's obvious information. I've got like a peanut hanging by a fishing wire in here that rattles around. So if I can figure it, I think everybody can figure it out. And I don't know why Powell doesn't bring it up, or why they don't show what the real chart is. They don't show the M2 money supply. They don't show, the velocity of M2 money stock. They don't show how much assets they have purchased. They don't. When's the last time Powell says, "Yeah, we got almost $9 trillion, guys, and we got to unwind it somehow"? Like, they never even bring it up. They literally will just say the word, like, "Oh, we're gonna unwind soon. We're gonna start, tapering. We're gonna do that," but they don't talk about how much. Because when you talk about how much, you realize, wait a minute, you've written checks you can't cash, buddy. And in my business, when you write a check you can't cash, they bounce and you lose all respect. So that's what you're doing. And that's the truth. And when you see the dollar amounts, you realize you have written more than one check you can't cash, quite a few of them. And now you're talking to all of us like, oh, we're going to raise it a measly 0.25%. That's nothing. Like, just to show you guys again, I mean, like, I don't want to keep showing you the same charts, but I got to show it one more time. It's insane that to stop this inflation, which I would argue we're up here if you go by the same CPI data, even if we cut it in half. So we cut it in half and we believe the 7.5 figure, right? The last time inflation was not even double that. So it was, 4.58%. They had to raise it to over 20% to stop that. I repeat, they had to raise it to over 20%. That was the rate hike. 20%. Here, we're at half of that. So half of that would need a minimum of 10%, right? Just to break it down very clear, we would need a 10% hike to stop half of that. So if it's that obvious, 20% was needed to stop it at 15. We're at 7.5. We're at half of that. 10% would be needed to stop that, right? But here's what they're doing. So here's your 20% that stopped it, and they're at 0 right now. So to stop it, they would have to raise it to here. And that's if you believe their CPI data figures. It's not really true, but if you believe that 7.5%, you would still have to raise it to around here to stop it. They're talking about raising it from here. Wait, to here. Right there. They're going to raise it from here to there. If that's not clear, I don't know what is. It's nothing. It's literally a nothing event. It's so obvious. It makes me, it gets grinds my gears because it's like it's so obvious. The data is so clear, but we're not being told the whole truth. And then here we're seeing oil starting to skyrocket, and oil is what caused that problem in the past. I mean, it doesn't get more clear than that. And then at the same time, it's like, so how do you protect yourself now? Like, how do you really protect yourself? Are you going to buy a bond? You're going to buy a 30-year treasury bond. You're going to get a T-bill, and you're going to get 2.2% to lock up your money for 30 years. Oh, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. The only person that's stupid enough to buy a bond is the Fed. Like, point blank. 20-year, you're going to get 2.3% for locking it up 20 years. You get more on interest rate for locking it up 20 years than a 30-year, huh? That's interesting. The 10-year, you're going to get 1.8%. I mean, what are you going to do? Is that going to stop inflation that's at 7.5%? Is that going to help you? No, you're going to lose money and you're going to tie up your capital. So you're not even going to make cash flow on the money that you're tying up. That's just, if you want to talk about really burning your money, go buy a bond. That'll burn it. I talk about burning money on both ends. That's just torching the money altogether. I don't know who's buying bonds. So I think money's going to flood out of bonds, flood out of the equities and go into safe haven assets. And I think it's just starting. I think silver's about to run, to be honest with you. It still blows my mind that gold recovered in the way that it did. I keep showing this in my videos to see. I mean, it's obvious. So the last all-time high in 2011, gold broke to just over 1900, and now we're back at that all-time high. So we've reached that level again that we reached in 2011. So it's back there, but silver, when it reached its all-time high in 2011, hasn't gotten back to its all-time high in 2011. That just shows silver is literally undervalued by half in comparison to gold. It should be at 50 an ounce right now if it wasn't falsely suppressed. At least that's my personal take on it. It's like, that's such an obvious, it's like we're giving away silver. That's why I don't even want to sell it anymore. People say like, why haven't I put stuff on my website yet? I'm just building the website out to be better. I don't want to sell my silver. I'm supposed to be selling silver. I don't like selling it. I want to keep it because this looks extremely undervalued to me. It looks like it's about to spike. It seems like it's just a matter of time. And then Bitcoin has had a great, little bit of time here in the past month. It's had a nice recovery. It was falling pretty hard, pretty big recovery. And I think that these huge spikes here are very telling of people being worried about how their money was frozen in Canada, how you can only get so much out in the Ukraine right now. The fact that we don't own our money and we don't have custody of it, I think that's really taking people by storm. So yeah, that's pretty much my rant. I'm sure that it was an earful, but that's the stuff I want to talk about because it seems that nobody's talking about it. So I appreciate everybody that hits the like button, everybody that helps me get into that algorithm. Even if YouTube doesn't want to push my videos, if we hit the like button, they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. It's going to get out somehow. And also, please make sure to follow me on Instagram. If you want to see like pictures of my bars, see pictures of the stuff that I collect, go to Instagram at Rob Soltan on Instagram. Take that 1 second to go follow me there because I put in the story when I post a new video and you'll get a notification that way. If YouTube doesn't show you a notification, that's my little workaround that I can show you it there as well. It's always good to have other places than just one. And so that's been working to actually get the videos out. So I'm just doing everything in my power to get these videos out because it's hard to get the algorithm to put this type of content out. It's true. So I really do, as much as annoying as it is for me to say, please like the video. If you found this information valuable, I spend a lot of time pulling up this information. I spend a lot of time putting together all of this stuff. If it helps in some way, really means a lot to me if you take that 1 second to hit that like button to turn it blue and it gets the information out there. Let's go over some of the questions here. Let's go over some of these questions in the comments. I think that there was a super chat really early that I missed when I was ranting. Fopsy gave me a super chat, says, we're live. Thank you, Rob. Smash the like button. So the super chat told you to smash the like button. I appreciate that, Fopsy. Thank you, man. That's why a lot of people say that's why Trudeau relented. I mean, I agree. I think that it wasn't like you don't get a politician to do something based on their moral compass. Just like you don't get the Fed to do the right thing on their moral compass. You don't hope for a banker or something to have a moral compass to actually do the right thing. What you do is you squeeze them into doing the right thing. When their money, when they're hurt, and when their wallet hurts, that's when things get done. That's when things get done with a banker. Their moral compass does nothing. This does nothing for a banker. It's the wallet in the back pocket that does something. If you take away their money, that's when they have a problem. And I think they were seeing a very serious amount of money leaving the banks. And the banks called up Trudeau and said, hey, buddy, you know how you were freezing accounts? Well, guess what? Everybody wants to withdraw their money, and you're going to cause a bank run now. That's what you're going to do. And I know what's interesting. It's too late. You've exposed yourself. You've shown the public, you've shown the masses that what you're capable of doing. And once the masses have seen that, and they've seen, oh, well, they can actually freeze your accounts if they so much as to disagree with you. They disagreed of what protest you supported. And because they disagreed with you, they decided to freeze your account. Like, that tells the masses, I think, hey, I need to figure out custody of my money. I don't trust these individuals. I need to be prepared. And so that potential bank run, I think you're exactly right. The person who commented that, it's you know what's crazy is it's kind of a good thing. It's kind of a good thing because they're supposedly back to normal, so to speak, but at the same time they've exposed that. And people that didn't realize how important it was to have custody of your money now realize how important that really is. And I think that that's the problem. The people around the world got too comfortable giving somebody else the custody of the real asset. I mean, what is money? Money to me, if I was going to define money, is stored value. Like it's stored time. So that would be the best way to put it. Stored time. So if you work a job, you worked, 40 hours a week, and that 160 hours you've put in for the month is your stored time. You need to be paid in time. That stored time, that stored labor that's what money is. And when you trade your time, you want to trade your time and your labor for something that took time and labor. That's the trade-off. I spent this much time and labor. Some people do it in a smart way and make more. Whatever it is that you spent your time and labor to get that together, and you want to put that into something that took time and labor to get. So it took time and labor to mine this Palladium bar here. That was time and labor here. So I work hard, get my time and labor to trade it for stored time and labor. This is stored time and labor. That's what money is. And as soon as we trusted somebody else to hold this and then excessively print things behind it, and then they stole it and said, actually, we're not even going to give it to you, but we printed a ton of stuff and here it is. That's the system that we have. It's unbelievable. When you really break it down for what it is, it's theft. Fiat currency is theft of time. When you really break it down, it is theft of time. That is what people are being robbed of, because people are, and the way that he said it in the State of the Union, he said something along the lines of, oh, well, just raise wages. How do you stop inflation? Well, this is how you stop it. You basically charge less money for your stuff and you raise wages. Oh, really? Really? It's just like that. That's how you do it. Like, who? And then there's people clapping. It's like, what are you clapping? What are you clapping about? He just outright, like, talked about inflation like a kindergartner. That is not how it works. People, the American you talked about made in America, you shut down our pipelines. The reason why Powell's talking about a possible other currency is because you shut down our pipelines and are damaging our energy independence, and our dollar is back to that energy. Because you didn't back it to gold anymore. It's back to energy. So if you remove our energy, it's like, who are you fighting for, man? Who are you fighting for? You turned off our energy independence. You're turning off our pipelines, and you're doubling down on that while begging OPEC, getting on your knees for OPEC to get more oil over to us. And now we're going to have to pay $113 plus a barrel, if not more, by the time I wake up tomorrow. Who knows where it's going to be tomorrow? But it's like right now, as I'm making this video, it's $113.55 a barrel. And we're going out there and we're begging other countries to give us their oil while we have it right there. And you've turned it down, you turned it off, and you're preaching things like, oh, we're just going to make renewable energy overnight. It's like, that doesn't work like that. I want renewable energy. Everybody wants renewable energy, but it's going to take dozens of years to be energy independent right there. And meanwhile, we're letting everybody else get rich, and we're just not making money and not supplying our own oil. Why don't we have even if we had enough oil, we should be running that pipeline and selling other countries the oil. They're selling us the oil and making a fortune. It's ridiculous. I want to know who's getting their pockets padded by OPEC and whatnot. That's what I want to know about. You turn off our pipelines and you damage our American economy. You damage our American jobs, American manufacturing. All of that gets damaged by shutting down the pipeline. And then you have the audacity to go out there and talk about how you're helping and make stuff in America. It's like you literally damaged Made in America, and you actively damage Made in America. It's like people aren't blind to this anymore. You can't just go out there and say some blanket political statement that's completely a lie. It's a joke. And people tend to forget just how important oil really is. Oil is the most important energy resource we have, period. And it's why our dollar holds value, and you have this individual turning off the ability to produce as much oil as Russia imports to us. Last time I checked the numbers, literally the Keystone Pipeline was going to produce enough oil to satisfy the amount that Russia brings over to the States, if not more. And then what you could do is you could literally then sanction Russia. If I was in control, if I was running the show, I would literally say, okay, we're turning on the Keystone Pipeline. This is just what I do, in my opinion. I would turn that on immediately, and I might even try to turn on more. Turn on as much as I could, and then I would sanction Russia on something that actually mattered. Say, oh yeah, Russia, you know how you think you're very powerful with your oil and stuff? Well, we don't need it anymore. We have our own pipeline, and it produces more than you bring over here. So actually, do you want to buy any? Because we'll sell you some. Do you need any? Because guess what? We're not allowing you to send any over here. Now what? You see, we just have a person that doesn't know what's going on. Like, if you're playing chess, you're playing against a chess grandmaster, and you're letting him take every single piece on the board that matters, and you're focused on his pawns. I want his rook, I want his bishop, I want his knights, and I want the queen, and I want to put him in checkmate. And the way you do that is being energy independent and saying, we don't want any of your oil, the other countries don't want any of your oil, and we're going to supply them and get paid by them, actually, because and I would use that as an arbitrage play, as a business play. I would literally, you corner the market that way. So I would tell all the other countries and say, look, everybody in NATO, you can't get any oil from Russia. We're sanctioning them. And then we at the U.S., we're going to supply your oil, and it trades in dollars anyway. So we'll supply what Russia is going to be sanctioned of. So all the oil that Russia was giving you, guess what? We're second. So Saudi Arabia is number 1. We're number 2 on oil. And then Russia's number 3. But Russia's smart, and they're the number 1 exporter, right? So if we're already number 2 in the production, we could be number 1 exporter overnight. Why not do that? Sanction them where it hurts, not on the stuff where it doesn't hurt. Sanction them where it hurts. Take control of the dollar. Don't have the Fed chair going out there saying, oh, there's a possibility of another currency popping up. No. Take advantage of the situation, and then furthermore, put them in checkmate, and then furthermore, make more money for the country. Let's do both of those things, and we'll have more jobs because of it as well. Let's do all of that in one. It's ridiculous. Like the incompetence of what's going on right now is absolutely astounding to me. It blows my mind. It's sickening. Somebody's getting their pockets padded or something, because that's a very clear, honest answer. Like that's the easiest way to do it. You literally produce as much oil as possible in our mainland and sanction them where it hurts, and it would end this overnight. Because then the ruble couldn't recover because they wouldn't have the resources to sell to recover. So they would really hurt. When they're hurting, you want to make sure there's no way out of hurting. And so anyway, the prior individual in there probably would have done that. But I don't like being political on my channel. I don't like to get too much into politics. I just like to speak from the heart, tell it like it is. And so hopefully it helps some individuals. Hopefully people share these videos, get them out there. Hopefully it's worth hitting the like button. If you haven't hit the like button, would really appreciate it if you did that. Gets these videos out to more people. But yeah, I tend to rant a little bit, but it's something, it's just wild to me that I guess what I want to do is get out the real information as much as possible. If I can get out the real information and keep spreading awareness to this, I don't care if it takes a little bit more effort to get these videos out there, because I think if you put real information out there and you speak from the heart and you don't beat around the bush, people will share the content because it's worthwhile. And then there's no way that even if the algorithm doesn't show the videos or whatever, at least people will share it. I really, on my channel, I really, really rely on word of mouth. So when people share my videos on like Twitter or share my videos on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, means a lot to me, because I rely on word of mouth for the things that I talk about on my channel. If people saw the analytics on my channel, they would be very surprised about what goes on. Because I watch it very close, and I'm a numbers guy, so I know what's going on, and just put it that way, I rely on word of mouth advertising quite a bit. So if you find value in these videos, really appreciate it if you hit the like button. Really appreciate it if you tell a friend or share it or anything like that, because really, really, really does help. And make sure to follow me on the other social medias, specifically Instagram. I would say I'm the most active on Instagram, at Rob Sultan on Instagram. And I always put in the story after I do a video or before I do a video in the story on my Instagram, so you can get a notification there if you don't get one on YouTube. And there's usually a link in the story as well on my Instagram. So please make sure to follow me at Rob Sultan on Instagram. And that is my way to, again, if the algorithm doesn't like me, I will find a way to get this information out one way or another. And that's one of my little loopholes there, is just to show it on Instagram so that people see it on Instagram and get a notification that way if YouTube doesn't give you a notification. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, would really appreciate it if you click the red subscribe down there and the bell afterwards, so you hopefully will get notified on YouTube. If you don't get notified here, you will get notified on the Instagram. So if you do both of those things, you'll be notified of when we go live here on YouTube. Let me get to some more comments before we end the stream. Let me get to a few more comments. I think that there was another super chat. I never missed those. I appreciate it. Jerry in the house. Jerry loves Bitcoin, silver, platinum, and gold. Always great to hear from you, man. He says, thank you so much for all the shout outs and great advice yesterday. It meant so much to me. You are my favorite YouTuber, Rob Sultan for president. I appreciate that, Jerry. And again, man, that video you did, he did like a 20-minute video talking about how I should eventually run for president one day. And I'm humbled by it, man. I'm seriously humbled by it. And again, I think that's the nicest thing anybody's done for me in my life. I'm always I kind of keep to myself. People think I'm extroverted. I'm actually really introverted. I'm always just doing my business stuff behind the scenes. That's why when people follow me on Instagram, they're like, well, wait, I didn't realize you actually are in the collectibles business. I didn't realize you actually do this thing. I thought you were fronting about that. It's like, no, wasn't fronting about that. So I'm introverted. I'm packaging stuff. I'm shipping stuff. Things are coming in. Things are going out at the warehouse here. And I don't really talk to too many people. And so for somebody to make a video like that on your channel, so please do subscribe to Jerry. Jerry's a really cool guy. That meant a lot to me, man. It really did. So thank you, man. Seriously, I'm not just saying that. It's probably one of the nicest things anybody's ever done for me. And that just makes me feel good, because it makes me realize that this information is helping people. And it makes me want to keep moving forward when I see stuff like that. So thank you, man. Yeah, it's scary how much, I mean, when you are backed into a corner and you've done something so terrible that you can't find any way out of it, keep in mind, whenever the Fed like tries to make any type of announcement, they always say things like, well, it's not finalized. They literally say, quote unquote, it's not finalized, but maybe in the future we'll finalize it when we talk at the next meeting. You know, they always leave that loophole there. And, you know, we're going to proceed, but we're going to proceed carefully. And it's not final. And we're going to proceed, but proceed carefully. And we might do that, but we don't know yet until the next meeting. So we'll talk about it back in the next meeting. So can I get out of here, guys? Can I please get out of here? Like, that's literally what I see every single time they go and talk. You know, every time Powell's out there is like, we're going to proceed, but carefully. It's a joke. It's a total joke. But I do agree. Someone just talked about how they're going to use that as an excuse. I think they are going to use the war as a major excuse. That is the best thing that they could possibly, it's such a, I don't want to say it like that, but it's like, that's what they're going to do. They're going to use that as an excuse, and they're going to say that caused inflation. This whole situation, the real reason why oil is 113 plus a barrel is because of what's going on over there. It's like, no, it's because you shut down our own pipelines, and you needed to export our oil. You needed to import oil from them, and that's what caused this. Because this individual who thinks he's doing something smart turned off our energy independence and is actively, literally actively attacking our energy independence. And then has the audacity to go, I want things made in America, and we want you to pay more wages and cost less charge less for your stuff, but pay more wages. That's what's going to stop it. There's my blanket political statement for you. Yeah, dude, that's what's going to do it. Just charge less for your stuff, and we'll pay your employees more. That'll stop it. It's like, do you even remember what you said 6 minutes ago? Did you walk off the stage and go, I don't know, let's go to bed. Can I have ice cream? What can I do right now? Something. Anybody. You know, it's like, it's the most insane thing I've ever seen. Whether you're left, right, you know, whatever it is, I'm a libertarian. I'm not left or right. I'm just like, I think that means like you're the most conservative and the most liberal at the same time when you're a libertarian. You're like, you're right in the middle, because you basically just means the government's gotten too big, make them smaller. We have a bunch of bingo players running the show, make them smaller. That's how I look at it. Point blank. Like, I just want them to be smaller. I think they can't, the larger the government gets, the more mistakes they cause. And we're seeing it in real time right now. So it's not that I'm, you know, extremely right or extremely left. It's just that I think that they need to be smaller and limited, just like the founding fathers had intended. The framers of the country intended it to be a small, limited, and defined government, and now it's just this loose cannon that's completely out of control. And we have individuals that, quite frankly, don't know where they are running the show, which is like, this is the commander in chief. Like, oh my God! And then you have people clapping. It's like, come on. Anyway, I don't want to just be negative all the time, but it's like, this is the truth. It is what it is. You know, and I just want to see more people like Jerry, your video, it struck me as important because you're talking about how we're both libertarian minded. And if more people understood that, I don't think there was supposed to be a Democrat and a Republican party. I think we were all supposed to be free thinking libertarians. I think the American Party was supposed to be the Libertarian Party. That's where I think we've gotten it all wrong. Is this, when you divide citizens, that's when they're easy to get control of them. If you continue the divide, but if people realize, well, we're all independent and we're going to make independent votes and we just want a small government altogether. I mean, a libertarian really should be the only political party, in my opinion, but guess what? It's the smallest one, which is just goes to show you. But that's how I look. That's how I think about it myself. Carolina says, he isn't wrong about you running for president. I think you would do really well for our country. You would help the average American in the U.S. as a whole lot. You know, I would love to one day. I'm 28, so I mean, I think you need 7. You need to be 35 or something like that, and then I got to do some political type stuff. I guess that's why. The thing is, in today's society, the reason why I'm so focused on money right now and building my companies and things like that is because money kind of is. It's not just about the power trip of it, but it's that you have, like, why is Elon Musk able to deploy satellites in the sky, and then when they're asking for internet, he's able to do that, is because he's made a lot of money. So you need that. It's like I see it like a toolkit. So I need to focus on the toolkit first if I ever want to do something like that in the future of my life. But I would love to if the opportunity arises. If things are even around, then, I don't know where the world's going to be then. But at some point, yeah, that would be amazing. But it would be a long time down the road. But in the near term, I can make these videos and inspire people and get my voice out there as much as I can. It's like I'm trying to do the best with the outlets that I have on hand and put this information out at scale. Because I think that when you just do like people that just do like a blanket insult, I made a Twitter post on this earlier. It's like people that insult, it's usually a weak thing. Like if you only insult the State of the Union and you just go, oh, this guy, he's crazy, whatever, and you do the insult, I think that's weak. What I think is actually the strong thing to do is to lay out your thesis and show exactly why you think the way you think and give bulletin points on why you have this thesis and why it's different and why you don't agree with that individual. Now, I might insult, but the thing is with my channel and these live streams and stuff, I can actually go over my thesis and say, this is why I think this is crazy. You've shut down the pipelines, you're damaging energy independence, and at the same time, you're giving away American money and American jobs to the Russians, and you're begging them to give you more oil. It's obvious what is going on here. So when you're actually able to say your thesis, that's when it's a strong thing there. But most individuals, they'll just do an insult and they don't provide the thesis. You got to provide the thesis and give out the points so that people that might be far left hear you out and go, actually, that does make a lot of sense. Actually, that would really hurt them if you cut off their supply of them supplying other countries with oil. That would be the real sanction that would actually damage. But guess what? They don't do that sanction. So my whole goal is to just put my information out there in real time and not edit it at all. And then hopefully down the line, if people are so kind to share my videos and hit the like button and subscribe, then maybe one day we can make that happen. Maybe one day, because I'm going to need to get a large audience for something like that to happen. So shameless plug, please do follow me on Instagram at Rob Sultan on Instagram. Please do hit the subscribe. Please do hit the like button if you ever do want that to happen. We got to grow my channel, and then eventually that might be a possibility, but I won't rule anything out of the possibilities. I did put into the universe that I'm going to get 100K by the end of this year, so I got to keep putting in the work. So I believe that it's going to happen. I've put it out in the universe. I believe I'm going to break 100K. It's a silver plaque. I like silver. I might even take that silver plaque that YouTube gives you for breaking 100K subscribers and get it casted in real silver and be the first YouTube channel with one of those 100K plaques casted out of real silver, and then put the other one somewhere else, but have like an actual silver plaque. Might do that. You never know. I've been thinking about it, but that at one point it will happen. So get to maybe a couple more comments and then we'll call it a night. This one I want to do I was going to do this one for another, like I was going to do it for 30 minutes and we're already over an hour. So I'll get to a few more comments here and then we'll call it a night. I think the last super chat with Jerry, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I want to make sure I didn't miss any of those. And they will make the sanction work as much as possible. I mean, but if they did make the sanction work as much as possible, they would turn on our pipelines and they would shut down. They would actually include oil. Look up the sanctions. They didn't put oil in the sanctions. Why is that? Why are you allowing Russia to make a fortune off of their oil? You should sanction that and make your own. It's that simple. So if that's not in there, I mean, that is the most odd. Like it's like dancing around the thing that actually will hurt. If you did that and you did it in unison too, because you got to remember most of the natural gas in Germany and in Europe comes from Russia, most of it. So it's like if you had them turn that off at the same time and you supplied them, you would make money off of that and you would really, really hurt. Like that's a sanction that would be, you could probably even just threaten that sanction and they would immediately leave and go back. Like literally just a threat of that, saying, look, we actually just turned our pipeline back on, buddy. What are you going to do? You know what's next. We turned our pipeline on. We're making our own oil. We're going to supply our allies with oil. You know what's next. We're going to sanction your oil. Stop it now or we sanction your oil. I would even give him a fair warning. And then if he didn't, then you do it. And then that would really hurt. That is what would actually stop things. But I guess we don't look at things, we don't actually do the things that are going to stop it. We dance around the bush, and we have videos coming out of people pouring out, bottles of Russian vodka. Like, that's going to do something. Like, oh yeah, let's get all the little things. Like, no, the energy is where it hurts. That's where it stops things. Anyway, I'll keep repeating myself if I keep talking about it. I agree. Vacation time, I totally agree with you, man. He says, Russia's not stupid. They no doubt considered all possibilities. I agree with that. I think they definitely did. Well, all right, guys, let's go ahead and we're going to call it a night. I plan to do a couple videos tonight as well that I'm going to post on the channel. So if you're not subscribed, please do click the subscribe and the bell afterwards, and you'll be notified of all future videos. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, @RobSultan on Instagram. I will see you at the next video. Signing out.